Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into, well, a moment that changed everything for everyone. The shifts in daily life right at the start of the COVID-19 period.
Hmm.
And our source material is really unique. It's not, a bunch of data or academic papers. It's one very personal, very detailed testimonial.
Yeah, and that's what's so fascinating here. We're looking at a subjective account. It's got a strong faith-based perspective, but we can pull out these universal truths about human behavior, about resilience.
Right.
Our mission here isn't just to list what changed, it's to understand the deeper lessons that bubbled up when, all our normal routines were just gone. We want to analyze the coping mechanisms.
Exactly. So we'll sort of trace the journey that's laid out in this account. We'll start with that immediate jarring shift where the line between work and home just completely vanish.
Yeah.
Then we'll get into the new things people found, new ways to learn to connect, to stay active. And finally, we'll try and synthesize the deeper, maybe more lasting lessons about community, reflection, and what really matters.
Sounds like a plan.
So let's start with that workplace transformation. I mean, the testimonial really paints a picture of this sudden, almost awkward shift to working from home.
It does.
The kitchen table is suddenly your office desk. The sofa is your new office chair. It was a total reshuffling of your professional world.
And that reshuffling, that geographical shift, created this immediate psychological strain. I think that's something we forget.
How so?
Well, you had to learn overnight how to be a professional, how to be efficient while you're surrounded by the beautiful chaos of home life.
Right. The source mentions the funny side of it, like the dog wanting to play during a big video call.
Exactly. But what that really shows is how the boundaries just became so permeable. You were forced to manage work and home at the same instant,
Yeah.
with no mental break, no physical
But
separation.
that must have been just exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. And for anyone trying to balance a job with, sudden homeschooling or caregiving, it was immense.
Did the source talk about that stress of wearing both hats at once?
They did, yeah. But what's interesting is how that stress was, in a way, softened. The source talks about a kind of forced flexibility.
What do you mean?
Well, the shared absurdity of it all. The fact that everyone on the video call could hear the dog barking, it actually lowered that professional wall.
Oh, okay.
It added this necessary human touch to work. It was a huge adaptation, sure, but it also taught a kind of radical acceptance.
Let's pivot from the home office to the kitchen because the source talks about this food revolution that swept through households.
Hmm. A big one.
The whole meal routine just got turned on its head. It mentions families suddenly eating all their meals together, not just dinner.
And that wasn't just about, getting calories in. This was about reestablishing ritual. It was about structure in a world that had suddenly become completely shapeless.
The days just blurred together.
They did. And mealtimes became these anchors, these reliable points in a very unreliable time. And from that came this culinary boom, everyone trying new recipes.
And of course, the bread. You have to mention the bread.
The sourdough starters, yes. The massive trend of making bread.
Why do you think it was bread specifically? I mean, it seems like so much effort for people who were already completely overwhelmed.
I think bread making gives you something vital when the future is so uncertain, a tangible accomplishment.
That makes sense.
It's a project. It takes hours. But it guarantees a visible, a measurable, and an edible result.
Mhm.
And in a time of, forced waiting and this vague global threat, the simple act of making a loaf of bread gave people a real sense of control.
A sense of contribution, even.
Exactly. The testimonial really connects that joy of a simple home-cooked meal with finding peace, finding it in just, providing for your family.
So moving from the kitchen to, well, the virtual classroom, there was this huge educational shift.
Enormous. Kids suddenly learning online, using tablets, using computers for their lessons every single day.
A huge stressor for parents, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. But also a fascinating accelerator for digital literacy. The speed at which families and students adapted was just phenomenal.
And the technology that might have been seen as a distraction before?
Suddenly is a critical tool.
Yeah, it's the only thing allowing learning to continue. The author actually calls technology a blessing in this context, something that kept the path straight when the old roads were closed.
And that reliance on technology, it bled into everything, especially mental and physical health. The gyms closed, you couldn't travel,
Mm.
so people had to get creative.
They really did. The living room became the new gym. The testimonial talks about people watching videos, learning new
Or
exercises.
the more spontaneous stuff.
Right, just
See,
starting to dance to music in the house, and the kids would join in. It completely changed exercise from this scheduled outside thing you had to do
an obligation.
to something internal, flexible, and often something the family did together.
And that's a crucial shift in motivation, isn't it? You lose the external structure of the gym, the personal trainer.
Yeah.
You have to find that discipline inside yourself.
Which probably led a lot of people to turn inward in other ways, too.
It did. The source mentions a big increase in relaxing hobbies, reading more, discovering new authors, and significantly listening to a lot of new podcasts.
A search for structure, maybe, or just escapism.
I think both. It was a search for guided knowledge, for a calming voice during very, very quiet times.
And despite all that physical quiet, that isolation, keeping social bonds alive was just critical.
Absolutely vital.
The source really emphasizes the intense reliance on video calls every single day, talking for hours with family and friends who lived far away.
Video calls went from being, a tool for work to a lifeline for your emotional health, for intimacy.
The whole expectation changed.
It did. It wasn't just a quick "how are you" anymore. It became this performance of closeness, trying to make it feel like you were physically present, even across thousands of miles.
And people got creative. The source mentions playing online games together.
Yeah, for fun, for shared laughter. It just shows how resilient relationships are. You find a way.
It almost feels like the physical distance forced a deeper kind of communication, a more intentional one than when we all just took being in the same room for granted.
I think that's a very powerful observation.
So let's talk about the deeper lessons. Section 3, the things that really stuck. And it seems to start with this powerful sense of community.
Yeah, of kindness and responsibility. The testimonial gives these really vivid examples that bring it to life.
Like the neighbor who just, as a routine, started buying groceries for an elderly person on their street.
Or the church group making food for doctors and nurses.
It's these small things.
They're small acts, but they reinforce a really important psychological idea.
Yeah.
When we feel powerless against a huge global threat, we look for ways to feel empowered locally.
By taking concrete action.
Exactly. Concrete acts of service. And from the author's faith perspective, this was also about fulfilling a higher sense of collective duty, the small acts of help. They suddenly became very, very big.
At the same time, there was this weird tension, right, between convenience and patience.
Tell me more.
Well, online shopping just exploded. You could get anything delivered, which was incredibly convenient.
You had to wait.
You had to wait. And that mandatory pause, that waiting period, was such a reversal of the instant gratification culture we were so used to.
It's a forced psychological reset, isn't it? It
Yeah.
trained us to accept delay. The real lesson wasn't about the delivery time. It was that it taught people to just slow down,
To breathe.
to breathe.
Yeah.
And that led directly, the source says, to reevaluating what's important: family, health, faith.
And that slowing down, that reevaluation, it seemed to redirect a lot of energy right back into the home itself.
Oh, definitely. The testimonial mentions a huge increase in cleaning, organizing, decluttering.
Closets, kitchen cabinets, the garage, everything got a once-over.
And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
When the outside world feels chaotic and totally out of your control, you try to create order in your immediate environment.
It's something you can control.
Exactly. Cleaning and decluttering give you this visible sign of progress, of order. And crucially, the source points out that when this was done together, like cleaning out the garage, it became successful family teamwork.
It was a way to build bonds.
A way to reinforce that you're all in this together.
We also have to touch on just the sensory change of the world outside. The quiet streets. Fewer cars, fewer people. It was strange.
Unsettling sometimes.
Yeah, but also undeniably peaceful.
That quiet was a gift for reflection. The author specifically mentions the sound, hearing the birds singing more clearly.
I remember that.
Right. This quiet created a space for thinking, for prayer, for reflection. It forced introspection simply because all the background noise of daily life was just turned off for a moment.
And just to circle back to resilience for a second, we can't forget the role humor played.
Mhm.
Back to those video calls, like cat walking across the keyboard, the dog barking in the middle of a presentation.
Those moments were so important. They were crucial. They added that human touch, as the source puts it. They reminded everyone that we were all just struggling to be professional in these deeply unprofessional settings.
It showed flexibility.
And it showed that we could still laugh. Learning to laugh at those little moments of chaos, keeping a good spirit. That was the mechanism that let people process all the uncertainty. It normalized the chaos.
So if we pull all these threads together, the core lessons seem to be about these fundamental shifts. Learning patience, for one,
A huge one.
discovering a deeper appreciation for family and friends,
Right?
seeing them as a true gift, and learning to trust more in simplicity.
Yeah, and recognizing that basic freedoms, things we never thought about, like just going to a store or
We-
hugging someone.
We're actually precious blessings.
Exactly. It was a period of forced growth. The author talks about learning new skills, both practical and relational. It just fundamentally changed their perspective on what freedom and value really mean.
It seems the ultimate takeaway from the testimonial is that this necessity, it drove not just invention, but also deeper connection, deeper faith.
I think that's a perfect synthesis.
So this testimonial, it really emphasizes reevaluating priorities, family, health, faith. All of that came into focus during that time of, mandatory stillness. But we've also, for the most part, gone back to a world that runs on speed, on convenience, on instant gratification, the very things we were forced to pause.
And that brings us to a critical question, a final provocative thought for you or the listener.
Yeah.
Given that you were forced to slow down, to build new rituals, to reprioritize your life around stillness and connection, how effectively did you carry those new values forward?
In the faster pace of life return.
Exactly. Which of those lasting behavioral changes did you actually maintain? And which ones, if we're being honest, did the culture of now just erase?
Reflecting on these shared memories, it gives us such a valuable insight into our own resilience and maybe the true cost of convenience.
Thank you for joining this deep dive into the unexpected lessons hidden in the stillness of unprecedented change.